Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. It is officially December 1st. We got so much to talk about. So I jam-packed this whole month with stuff so I can constantly work and, bring you guys more content. So I have two cases we're going to be talking about today. Not on this video. I'm going to be talking about the Diddy. We're going to talk about his childhood a little bit, okay? We're going to react to Law Crime and see if something can explain the way he is. I got a feeling it's not, though. You never really know everything. Also, it may not be that traumatic. He might have one or two things happen, but have good people around him, but just end up going down a bad route. I don't know. I'm wondering if it's like serial killer level, like with parents and stuff, because he got a lot of sexual stuff allegations. So I'm like, what caused this switch up in that brain to to act like this, to want to be in control, like do these disgusting things to people. I don't know. And we're also going to be talking, I think his name is Brian Colbert, the Idaho murders. We're going to be getting into that today in another video, because I'm going to be uploading two for you guys. And that is because I really want to go and get into some of these bigger cases to understand what happened, because I really don't know what happened on there. I just know that the dude got death, and he got the death penalty. I was like, what did he do? I heard about it. I know he killed some teenagers, not teenagers, some college students. That's it. So let's get into this P. Diddy mess, okay guys?
Before Sean Combs was a business mogul and rap artist and producer, he was just a kid from Harlem.
It's really surreal. It's really overwhelming to come from New York.
I'm taking a look at some of the shocking details Combs has revealed about his childhood and what it could mean about where he is today. Welcome to Crime Fix. I'm Anjanette Levy. Sean Combs, of course, has been all over the news for the last month following his arrest on sex trafficking and racketeering charges. He, of course, has pleaded not guilty to those charges, which came after raids on his homes in Miami and LA in late March. Combs' world started to crumble nearly a year ago when his ex, Cassie Ventura, filed a civil lawsuit claiming Combs subjected her to a decade of physical, mental, and emotional abuse. Combs settled that suit the very next day. Since that time, more civil suits have followed, with claims being made that Combs sexually assaulted or sex trafficked at least a dozen women. Combs has denied all of those allegations. Stories about those lawsuits have been the subject of hundreds and hundreds of news stories. And it's not the kind of attention that Sean Diddy Combs is used to or wants. He had cultivated an image of a self-made billionaire and business mogul for years. Combs had used a number of names over the years: Puff Daddy, Puffy, P. Diddy, Diddy, and now Love. But what do we really know about him as a person and how he became who he is today? What shaped him as a person? I want to go back to the very beginning. Sean John Combs was born...
Real quick. Also, I still don't understand. Cassie was with him for 10 years. How does somebody be with somebody for like a decade, which is crazy? It doesn't even feel like it. How can somebody be with a decade, begin basically tortured in this relationship and not try to take him out? Maybe it's just my way of thinking, because I'm like, there ain't no way I'm not finna well, he probably wouldn't even cook dinner. He probably just eat out. It's like, there ain't no way I'm not finna make you a drink. Like, there just ain't no way. But, yeah, this... Diddy got so much going on. It's crazy. This is never going to end until it's really settled, because it's so much evidence to go through. So I kind of see why everybody talks about it.
Born on November 4th, 1969 in Harlem. His mom was Janice and his dad was Melvin. We're going to have more on Melvin and Janice in just a bit, so stay tuned. We know Janice eventually moved Combs and his sister to Mount Vernon, New York after Melvin died. Janice actually worked 3 jobs to put them through private school. In a 2006 documentary, Sean Combs, Portrait in Black and White, Combs revealed a lot about his upbringing. He explained the difference in how his grandmother raised him compared to his mother, telling a story about someone stealing money from him after his grandmother sent him to the store to buy cigarettes. His mom told him to go get the money back and not to come home unless he got that money. He left crying, found the guy, and got beat up, but he said he got that money back. In the documentary, Combs said, "My mother, I guess, was raising me for the real world. She always told me, if someone hits me, to hit them back harder." Father, Melvin Combs, was shot and killed on Central Park West in 1972, but for years, Combs actually believed his father died in a car crash because that's what his mom told him. Combs talked about his father in the documentary, saying in his own words that he later found out his father's brains were blown out, and he learned he was the son of a hustler and a gangster, which he had always suspected. There has been talk over the years that Melvin Combs worked for Harlem gangster Frank Lucas, whose story was depicted in the film American Gangster. Combs apparently found out his father was friends with Frank Lucas, that drug dealer in the area, but has said in other interviews that his father was actually a drug kingpin in his own right, which is something he didn't want to glorify. Lucas has said he and Melvin Combs did business together. Combs said his only memory of his father was him tossing him into the air. He was a very stylish dresser. The ladies loved him. His whole everything is real meticulous. He had a lot of drive, a lot of determination. You know, he ain't want to be poor. A journalist earlier this year about Sean Combs and his father.
The Melvin Combs story is very interesting. I found something actually just the other day. You know, it's a daily news story from February 1973, which is a few years, maybe a year and a half or so after he was killed. But it was around the time that this drug case in which he had been involved, in which, you know, finally convictions happened in it. But this article says, well, look, you know, this case, which was, you know, breaking up a giant heroin ring, started when Melvin Combs's phone was wiretapped. And that was sort of the break in this case. And the article doesn't out and out say this, but it seems to imply that Melvin Combs' death was somehow connected to that, right? And you hear rumors people associated with Harlem in that time have said, well, look, people mistakenly thought Melvin Combs was an informant and that's why he was killed, right? It's sort of something that people who knew him back then or who knew the area back then have said. And so, you know, it seems to me this article sort of trying to put two and two together and say maybe the reason they thought that was because there was in fact, you know, this wiretap on his phone. So that part was true, but obviously wiretaps are not something one does voluntarily, right? So the drug dealer, but not just the drug dealer, sort of this suave, powerful guy who hung out with, you know, the biggest of the big gangsters, right? Frank Lucas, like you mentioned, who, of course, you know, his story is now immortalized in movies, right?
I have to watch that.
About as famous as you can get in that sort of milieu. So I think that Diddy seemed to hold on to that image of his father, and it seemed very important to him that his father was someone big and notable and important.
I started to think that it also, like, what plays a part in this is kind of like the mom, definitely. Also not, like, with the behavior. Think about, like, when he was young, he basically didn't have a dad. You know, he found out that he was, a gangster, didn't even know that, didn't even know what he did until the mom, like, most likely told him. So it's like you got this image of somebody that you don't really know anymore or never really knew. He did, like they said, he only knew, like, remember getting tossed in the air. So basically no father. Grew up with a mother who was, like, lying to him. It's crazy what that stuff can do to you.
Also discussed being a somewhat lonely person and his belief that he's not a good friend. I don't really think I make a good friend. I don't think I'm someone who's someone's going to call when they're going through something. I don't think I'm going to have the patience to really slow down to give them the attention they need. There are other things that Combs revealed about his childhood that really make me wonder what's going on with him when it comes to his views on women and sex. Combs spoke in the documentary about how he lost his virginity when he was just 12 years old. Combs also talked about watching pornography at a young age. The first time I had sex, I wasn't scared. It felt so good to me, but I just remember how impressed I was because I used to watch Midnight Blue and how I felt I was just as good as the porno stars, like in Midnight Blue. I want to bring in Dr. Daniel Bober. He is a forensic psychiatrist who deals primarily with young people. So, Dr. Bober, your first thoughts on this documentary? You know, we have Sean Combs years ago talking about being really, you know, quite sexually active at what I think is a young age.
Yes, I agree. And I think, you know, it's important to state the fact that those who are abused or exploited or have inappropriate sexual...
I wouldn't even want to know if that was a young person or an older person. Like, taken advantage of, or you got parents not being responsible and watching your kids. 12 is crazy. 12 is absolutely crazy. You know, I wonder if she just, well, it sounds like, well, I got a feeling the mom, she just let him run free. That's what people be doing, black parents too, especially in the hood. He was in Harlem. Dang. I need to watch this documentary. I'm actually curious. It's some stuff is making sense. Just a little bit, like a 0.5%. Don't worry. Of
Well,
why,
encounters
I
at a
don't
young
know.
age are not necessarily going to go on to become abusers. In fact, the majority don't. So, Sean Combs would not be the first person to have a traumatic childhood, but that certainly would not absolve him of responsibility for his acts.
He speaks so vividly. I've kind of talked to a number of people about this, just bouncing it off of people. Like, what do you think of this? Like, he's talking about losing his virginity at age 12, being exposed to pornography, watching pornography at a very young age. And there have been some people who have said to me, like, oh, come on, like, it's no big deal. A lot of kids do that at that age. I think of 12 as being very, very young. And I think of that as being a very formative time period, and something like where that could shape the way you look at sex. And viewing pornography at such a young age seems to me, and I know he's pleaded not guilty to these charges, but the allegations are that he has these days long sex parties, and it could go into a lot of different things looking at this. Is it possible he's just got these kind of wild views about sex and things of that nature?
Before he answered, it's like I don't know. It would make sense, but I'm like, he's older now. He gotta know. Like, you can't be that slow and not know by, like, his age. It's also because he's been hooking up with so many people. It's just weird because the stuff that they said he was accused of. Watching other people do it, forcing other people to do it for his pleasure, and a lot of that stuff you do see in, like, those. I don't know why I feel like those '80s pornos. I ain't seen that. I never seen an '80s porno, but I feel like it's like that type of stuff, that weird stuff of, like, the porn directors who direct these weird, like, I was about to say snuff films, y'all. These weird pornos of people doing random, weird, creepy, just stuff, and I feel like that's what he was doing. It's kind of.
I think what's going on here is, first of all, it is a big deal. It's not no big deal. So being exposed to sexual experiences at such a young age is definitely a form of trauma and abuse, in my opinion. People who are exposed to those types of scenarios when they're that age can go on to develop a number of symptoms. They may have problems with intimacy. They may objectify women. They may have a fear of vulnerability. They may be hypersexual, or on the other side, may be sexually avoidant. So it is not no big deal. It is something that can make it is something that can have a prominent effect on someone in their terms of their relationships and their sexual development. But again, it doesn't necessarily speak to the things that he's accused of. It may be an explanation for why he engages in some of the behavior. But I think if you take those childhood experiences and you combine them with celebrity, and then you have a person who has very deviant ideas about sex combined with being a celebrity, acting with impunity, knowing that there are no consequences, or at least believing that there are no consequences for their actions, doing so without fear that something's going to happen to them because of their tremendous wealth and their celebrity. And so I think that is a malignant combination.
There's also the viewing of pornography here too. This is another thing where I've bounced this off of some people, and they're like, "Oh yeah, no big deal." But children viewing pornography, even adults being pornography. I'm not trying to sound puritanical, but there are a lot of people, and you're an expert in, you're in forensic psychiatry. Is that a bad thing, the viewing of pornography? I mean, especially for a young person who's a kid.
I do think it can be bad. I think it's totally inappropriate. But unfortunately, with widespread access to the internet, to social media, kids at younger ages are being exposed to this type of pornography. And I have seen situations where patients of mine, for example, have acted out sexually at an inappropriate age, at least associated with the fact that they were viewing pornography. So I think it could be potentially destructive, but it really depends on the kid, their temperament, their parents, their support system. So I think there's tremendous variability.
There's another piece of this puzzle too, and that's drug use. And drug use is alleged to have been rampant.
here. You know, there's talk of GHB, ketamine.
Just like they said before, you know, it's like, it's just depends on how he, like, look how he was brought up in Harlem, but it's like the stuff you're around, he's in the 90s, y'all, drugs and music and violence, all the stuff he was a part of. And then when you get older, it's like it only gets worse. He, you know, the celebrity lifestyle, people think they have like no consequences because they kind of don't. It's like they can pay their way off or like literally persuade anything. It's kind of crazy how that happens.
Sean Combs's staff kept him basically drugged up all the time. Like, it's almost as if they were instructed to do so. How does drug use kind of influence these behaviors? I mean, I think of drug use as kind of loosening one's inhibitions and things of that nature.
So certainly drug use can make you disinhibited, affect judgment, affect your insight, affect your ability to control your impulses. But as we know in criminal law, drug use in and of itself, voluntary intoxication, is not a defense for a crime. What I see his defense team doing right now is painting this sort of family man defense, because one of the accusers is a single adult woman living at home and he is married with children. As a society, we place a positive moral value on either being married or having children or both. And the fact that this is a single woman, I think they're using that to sort of prejudice people, if you will, or causing them to view her in a negative light, because he is this sort of pure family man and she is this single adult woman. And again, I think there's sort of a subtext.
And I'm happy he said that because this man is not innocent whatsoever. Like I said, your childhood only makes up for like 0.5%. You're still an adult. You're still like you take you know, responsibility. I always think like how you grow up. It's like no matter what, I feel like people, you have that switch where you know, responsibility, learn how to get out of it. But when you get older, it's like you need to learn the responsibility. He knew what he was doing with all this stuff. That's why I had no sympathy for this man. Yeah, his childhood definitely says some stuff. I feel like the mom lied to him for the longest, you know, growing up in gangs and stuff. And did he grow up in gangs? I know drug use, but it's just, that doesn't really make sense of what stuff he did. It's a part of it. But I think the most interesting part is definitely the porn thing, especially at 12, because look at the stuff he was accused of. It really do, like, it would make sense. But the other downside to that is like, look, you're an adult, you should know like what not to do. Like, come on. But if we're talking about childhood, I would think that this don't play into his childhood. But I think growing up in the music industry is definitely the biggest part. If he wouldn't have, what would have happened? He would have just been like doing drugs and selling drugs to stay, you know, to make money. Because the music industry is not good for people like this. It's not good in general, mind you. This is stuff they do all the time. It's a lot of celebrities that's like this, surprisingly. Like, you'll be surprised. And then some people actually don't even get into drugs until they get into the celebrity world. It's crazy. Even Kia's is actually crazy. So let me know what you guys think of this video. I really wanted to see if I was surprised, you know, about the dad thing. I was like, okay, is he a mama's boy? Like, his mom didn't tell him a lot. And when that stuff happened, you really do get curious and you learn a lot. And that's also a little dark too. So on that note, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Stay safe, stay aware, stay alert. And I will see you guys on the next video. Bye.